Okay, the next president that we're going to be doing is John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 35th president of the U.S. Served from 1961 to 1963. One of the major moments, defining moments of his presidency was the Cuban Missile Crisis, where there was nuclear missiles 90 miles from the U.S. coast that could hit every single U.S. city except Seattle, Washington, is what they thought, every major city. And he practically led the U.S. with wisdom through the, arguably the 13 days that were, the most, the fact that we could be destroyed. But one of, the negative things that went along with that was the Bay of Pigs, but overall, the Cuban Missile Crisis did a pretty good job.
Okay, during his presidency, JFK came out with the space race. One of the major things with the space race, the Russians had launched Sputnik and were working very fast on their aeronautics technology. So Kennedy had challenged the American people to make themselves better, to try and help beat the Soviets in the space race, and then they wanted to put a man on the moon before the Soviets had a chance. JFK was the youngest president ever elected. Teddy Roosevelt was the youngest president to ever assume office, but JFK was the youngest ever elected. He was assassinated in November of 1963. There's a lot of conspiracy theories that go along with this assassination, and one of the main conspiracy theories is the magic bullet. And people who are wondering about these conspiracy theories often look to the National Archives, because JFK's brain was not buried with his body, and they think that the brain had something to do with JFK's assassination and the conspiracy to go along with it, but conveniently the brain has been lost. And so now we will grade JFK on his presidency. Alright, so Jim Marine, what would you give JFK on his presidency?
I would give him an A.
Why?
Because he had so many issues that he had to deal with, and I think he did a really good job, and he was assassinated, so apparently he was doing a good enough job for someone to completely disagree with him that much.
Nick?
I would give him an A-.
Why?
I thought he did an incredible job with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the space race is pretty significant in our technology, our future. And but I wouldn't give him anything higher because he was only in presidency for 2 years, so I don't know what he would have done later on.
Okay, I would give him a B+. I think that he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis wonderfully. I think the Bay of Pigs was a huge failure. I think that was probably the lowest point of his presidency. I like how he challenged the American people to make themselves better and not make everyone else in the world feel bad about themselves, but just try to get America to feel better. I think that you couldn't give him anything above that because I think that he's become a beloved president because he had died in office and he had only had 2 years, so we really don't know what else would have happened in his term. Tate?
I'll give him a B. I agree with you for the most part. I think he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis very well, but I think you could make the argument that we wouldn't have even been in the Cuban Missile Crisis if he would have did a better job with the Bay of Pigs. If he was going to attack Cuba to the CIA means or whatever, I don't think that, having 1,500 people who, are just rebels invading, he did have a larger force, and then he took it back because, scaled it down because he didn't want to let the American people down, but ended up just, not a very good job in that. I think he did a pretty good job with the space race. That was a good thing, but overall he was only in office for 2 years. Really, Vietnam started escalating him as far as a secret CIA action under his time, so you never know what would have happened if he would have stayed in office.
Mr. Hamer?
I give him a B+. Space race is great. Cuban Missile Crisis, I don't think he made a mistake with that. I just don't think enough time in office to give him that.
Catherine?
I would give him an A- because I believe that he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis with dignity, and I believe that the space race was one of the best things that could have pushed America into the greater technology era.
Okay, so now we're going to grade JFK on his overall presidency. Okay, so after averaging out the grades, we give JFK an A- on his overall presidency.